episode 284 of Sports on the Hill podcast. I am Robbie. I'm joined by Champ, who just resubscribed. I really appreciate that. He's on a 10-month streak, so thank you for all the support, Champ, for that. I'm also joined by Dujunnea from The Breakdown as well. So Dujunnea Bland, Champ, and myself will be talking football. We'll get into that in just a second. I want to give a little overview of all the different things going on with tonight's podcast. Hopefully we sound okay. I'll let Andy let us know in chat. Welcome Chase as well to chat on the Twitch side. We're also live on Facebook in addition to that. So welcome to everybody on Facebook as well. And we'll be taking questions over there, and I'll be sharing that one shortly. It's been an interesting up and down week for me. I got COVID, so I'm actually streaming from my parents' house. They are out of town. They're letting me use their house to keep away from my family, so hopefully they don't get the COVID. And so I've had to reconfigure OBS, so if things look a little differently on Twitch, that is the reason why. We are getting very close to my Twitch goal of the month, which is to hit 420 followers. We're only 2 away, so hit that follow button if you're not already following. So that is some of the information. I am feeling much better, which is good. In a couple of days, I'm hoping to go home and help Liz out. Her mom, unfortunately, got COVID too, so she's actually here. My parents are affectionately calling it the infirmary ward, which is okay, their house. But it's nice to actually have another person in the house. It was very lonely to be by yourself in a house, so I appreciate that. So tonight's show. We'll do a shorter, abbreviated football segment, maybe 30, 40 minutes. It's a lot of the same that we've seen the last couple of weeks, but we'll get Dujunnea and Champ's thoughts on that, and then I'll keep Champ on. We'll talk a teeny little bit about baseball, a little bit about the hockey preseason, a little basketball preseason as well. We'll run through it. And then if people aren't already noticing, we're starting at an earlier time at 8, so that way we can do an art show at 9. That will be live on Twitch. So if you're on Facebook, just click that little Twitch link that's in the description. We're going to be designing some merch for a good friend of mine, the LG Music. He does taco-themed. He's a musician, but all of his themed stuff, emotes and things like that, are all taco-themed. So we're going to design some taco merch for him, which should be kind of fun. A little bit different than the emotes I've designed the last couple of weeks. It'll be the last of our art streams. And then next week, starting at 9 o'clock, from 9 to 9:45, we'll have a hockey preview show. We'll move our football segment to 9:45. So it's not quite 10, so it's a little bit earlier for Dujunnea, but not quite as early as it has been. I
think Robbie just took a side shot as your grandpa. Okay.
No. I appreciate Dujunea's time, and so I will do that at 9:45. And then at 10:30, we'll have our NBA Roundtable return, and we'll talk a little bit of Wizards with that roundtable as well. Maybe we'll preview it next week. And then the following week, we're taking a week off. I'm going to the Gorillaz concert with my son. Then we'll come back, and that'll be a supersized show. We'll go over 2 weeks of football, the first 2 weeks of hockey, and the first week of basketball. So that'll be a very big show coming back from that. And then right after that is Halloween, which is crazy. Halloween's on a Monday. We're going to be starting a little bit later. I don't want to start too late because poor Anna, I don't want to keep her too late as well. So may start at 9:30, may start at 10. If Anna's joining us, we'll start at 9:30. If not, I'll start at 10. And that one we'll do it a super speedy round, maybe goes a little late, Halloween special where we'll go through the same sports in the same order, hockey, football, then basketball. So an exciting month of October ahead of us. Let's get into tonight's show. Dujunnea, how are you doing tonight?
And I'm doing great. Outside of this football team that we're covering, everything's great. Drag racing is great. It's a fun season coming to an end. 3 races to go. A lot of cool stuff going on there. Unfortunately, for Washington Commanders fans, going nearly as well.
Yes, sounds good. I am going to quickly just share the post with a couple of different people, but Champ, let everyone know how you're doing.
This team is chalked, so I'm chalked. Oh my god! Like, but I'm doing good. Wrestling is in a great spot right now. I mean, AEW is doing well. They're actually coming to DC this week. They're doing Dynamite on Wednesday, and then they're doing 2 shows on Friday. AEW Rampage, and then right after that, Battle of the Belts 4. So it's 3 AEW shows taking place in DC, and unfortunately, I can't check them out because I'm broke.
Man, I wish I could go.
Other than that, we're good.
Sounds good. All right, well, I'm going to let Dujunnea get the first crack at this game, and Dujunnea, let people know what some of your thoughts are. I know you've sort of given our thoughts the last couple of weeks, and I kind of feel like this week has been more of the same. Was that sort of your assessment, or did you have any sort of different takeaways?
Nah, this is exactly the same that we've seen over the last 3 weeks. This defense played well enough the past 2 games for them to get a win. And the offense is not living up to its end of the bargain. Really sick and tired of seeing fans going with the take from the doom and gloom crew of the Washington, D.C. trash dump media with this Carson Wentz stuff. Again, if the guy was 27-7 and nobody said his name was Carson Wentz, you take him. So miss me with that. How about you find an offensive line that can protect? This offensive line is about, protects as well as Scotch tape on a wet surface. He has no time to pass and be able to do things. Secondly, Scott Turner is not his daddy's son. This offense seems to be very predictable. And it's so predictable that it seems like the opposing team's defense knows exactly what the offense is going to do before they ever even do it. It's tough to watch and have to cover. There's nothing to break down. I'm not giving you any X's and O's. And I'm going to close it with this. There's a lot of things that teams are supposed to be practicing and dealing with and understanding in practice. You had a guy who picked up a blocked field goal or extra point and didn't know he could run it back to the end zone for 2 points. That's something that should be known and practiced.
Did he actually say it later that he didn't know it, or just that's based on what we were feeling at the time? I don't know if they ever asked him that question. Did they?
I don't think they asked him that, but it's quite obvious. I mean, anytime the guy just kind of, you got to know. People who know, obviously, because they make it to the end zone. And then on top of that, you look at the confines of penalty calls. We've been seeing the same crap from these defenders for the entire season. Obviously, the handsy stuff is not handsy. It's pass interference. There's countless people that are at practice and see this and say, this is going to get called on Sunday, Monday, Thursday. It's going to get called, and it's been getting called. Now, I'm not going to say that the referees were great in this game, but at the same time, this is Jerry's world. And if you're looking around and looking for the refs to save you, then that means that you're not playing good enough to win ball games. And the refs aren't entitled to save you at all. And we all know how it works in Dallas. Don't expect to get any calls. And when you're a loser, because that's what you are, a loser, then you shouldn't be expecting to get any calls. You haven't earned the right. Okay? Bottom line. There's things that they got to fix that they don't fix in practice. And it's quite clear that they bring the same crap. These guys looking around like, I can't believe you called me offsides. What do you mean? What do you mean? Why do I have to go back so many yards?
Yeah,
it's clear. They're looking around like, I don't know why we're doing this.
Right. It's interesting. Going back to that lateral thing, I don't know. I can't believe that he didn't try to pitch it back, or I do think he didn't know the rule, and I think he was just excited to get the block, and that's fine. But those little points here and there, they add up, and especially
when nobody else doing anything.
Right. And it's really frustrating because the offense just seems so anemic. We just don't see any gadget plays, anything creative, anything. It just seems like they're running the same vanilla offense every time. Then there's some penalties. They get behind the sticks. Then the other team just pins their ears back and they just go right after us. And it's just very frustrating.
You know what's clear here too is that, first of all, 2 tight end sets. They worked really great. They had some nice runs off of them. They had some nice plays off of them. But then Scott goes away and if you see the amount of times they've thrown the ball mainly at the line of scrimmage, it's mind-boggling. And there's no creativity at all. Like I said, he's not his daddy's son. Not at all. All right? Because he ain't showing none of what his daddy's ever done in this league at all. It's not creative. This team is not disciplined on offense. They clearly don't work on things that obviously are going to draw you flags in a normal 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8:15 on Monday or Thursday, and it shows up every week. But everybody wants to look at Carson Wentz like, look, man, I give it to you in the Philly game. He was holding on to the ball, and that, like I said, that report had him shook. But what are you going to ask? What are you going to ask him to do when your offensive line is like a revolving door? Okay, I mean, I'd say some other things, but this is a PG show,
right? Do you think it's player personnel, or do you think it's a system issue for the offensive line?
This is absolutely coaching. Period. It's coaching. Now, I mean, I'm not on Jack Del Rio's head this week. They did enough in 2 weeks. That don't mean he's off the snide. He's just off the snide for now.
Right. He's got a bigger person on the snide, right? So
exactly. Yeah. He's done a good job in 2 weeks. They've given him enough to win a ball game. They should have won 2. Yeah, but your offense don't show up.
Back to the offense, and the offense just was doing nothing with it, and it's just frustrating. And it's just, especially after they have these long drives, and then you just have to even have some time of possession going the other way, just to, you can't just keep it back to,
exactly.
And even on the short field, and they're doing a lot of things. But I want to get Champ in here. Champ, what are some of your assessments on this game?
Right. There were so many opportunities where the defense, who after the week 2, like Dujunnea said it, I said it. Like the defense needed to do what they had to do to give the offense a chance. And these last 2 weeks, including this week with Dallas, even though the score doesn't show it, the defense did what they had to do. The problem was the offense was not staying on the field long enough for the defense to be rested enough to go out and perform. Like, you can't expect a defense to be able to be effective if they're not well rested. If they're going out there, they're having, like, one drive Dallas had was 15 plays.
Yeah. You
can't expect the defense to go out on the sideline after 15 plays and then your offense turns around and doesn't even hold the ball for 5 minutes. And you're sending them right back out in the field, barely getting 5 minutes of time to catch their breath, get themselves together, and get organized for the next defensive series. That's not how you win this game, right? So basically, you look at the time of possession. Washington controlled the ball for 33 minutes to almost 27 minutes for Dallas. But again, that's not indicative of the fact that offensively, the planning is trash. It's trash. It's absolute. It's just there's no other cool, calm, and collected way for me to say it. Like, it's funny when they finally scored a touchdown. Guess how they got into the end zone? Most of that drive, guess what they were doing? Running the damn ball. Okay.
I like the running game, but I just feel like when they do something that works, they keep on doing it until it doesn't work anymore. They don't and I understand that old adage of, if they haven't stopped to keep going, whatever, but don't beat it into the ground.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
But at the same time, they still have to be creative with it. They just can't run the exact same play over and over and over again. And eventually, it's not going to work anymore. The other team's going to make an adjustment.
You know what's crazy? I didn't mean to cut you off today.
No, you good.
You know what's crazy? They were actually balanced for once this week. They had 142 rushing yards and 155 passing yards, but they were still ass. Right? They finally went balanced and they couldn't get out of their own way. I just don't understand it as a fan. But you know what also killed me? I spent a lot of time on Twitter on Sunday. I spent a lot of time on Twitter during this game. It was the most I spent on Twitter in months, if not years. And I realized something. Washington Commanders Twitter and the fan base that's on Twitter are absolute psychopaths who need to be committed. I'm dead ass. They need to be committed. There's one woman, I literally had to zip her for 24 hours because every tweet she's tagging the Commanders talk about wanting a refund for her season tickets. And I'm like, woman, get a grip. Chill out. What are you doing? Like, it's not that deep. It's only 4 weeks in. It's not that deep. I got a headache watching Twitter yesterday, and I had even more of a headache watching that game. I even said on Twitter, I said, they need to be paying me to watch this game. Deadass. I need to be paid to watch the Commanders.
Yeah, I was hoping that's going to make me feel better after a rough week. And I actually slept 13 hours. I woke up and it was 1:15 or 1:30, and I was like, oh, no, I've missed a whole quarter. I flip it on.
You missed
nothing. I missed a field goal is what I think I missed.
You missed nothing.
So, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. This is a coaching deal. And I'm tired of seeing Ron Rivera, calm, cool, collected on the sideline. This is your third year. And something has to change, and yet nothing has changed. It's the same. It's more the same. And it shouldn't be. There's plenty of talent on this football team. So, yes, it lies at the top. But at some point, you must examine those around you on your staff. And they simply aren't getting it done. I mean, did they not release a defensive line coach yet? We still got this guy named Scott Turner calling plays that can't call plays. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. We've got plenty of history here that shows. I mean, I'm going to leave you with this. So you run the football. Your offensive line is struggling to pass protect. And then you come out with play action. They can't even block in shotgun long enough. But you're going to come out with play action, and then everybody looking around like, oh, my God, I can't believe that didn't work. That's Carson Wentz's fault.
They kept on meeting him at the quarterback. One play, like the defensive end almost took the handoff because it was like they were telegraphing stuff.
Yes. I'm just like, I can't anymore with the Washington fan base. I don't know what you're taking, smoking. I don't know what's in the water in D.C. But I just can't with this fan base anymore. It's absurd. It's really ignorance. I mean, Joe Gibbs said that this fan base is super smart. Not anymore. This fan base has retired with the old name. I don't know these people.
Right.
Okay? I really don't.
No, they are definitely ignorant. A lot of them were calling for the coaches to pull Wentz for a quarterback who was inactive.
I saw that one too.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny.
The backup was freaking
Hurt put eyeballs on that one. Like, what is one of those like what? Like
Taylor Heineke was the backup, but they were calling for the third string rookie who wasn't even active, Sam Howell, to be put in. And I'm like, you idiots! He's not active. He's not dressed.
Yeah,
and it's funny to me that the backup is always the most coveted quarterback in DC, and yet this is the same guy that y'all wanted to run out of town last year. When we tried to tell you he's a great backup, he's just not a starting quarterback. But now you want him to be the starting quarterback. I mean, please, man. Like,
it's not going to solve the offensive line issue.
Exactly. So, that's leaking like a sieve.
Right. So.
They couldn't block shadows on the field. I mean, they give up a sack, and it's only the offense on the field.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's atrocious. And if I have to watch Kendall Fuller one more again get burnt, I mean, somebody get him a fire blanket because he is a blazing inferno. He beyond burnt. Okay,
But I just don't know
then
why
that's how bad he's playing.
But why don't they give him a shell coverage or something? Like, he's obviously in trail position. That's the way they're playing him. But there should be somebody coming from the other side that then picks him up, right? Like, if he's going to trail this
communication problems. We got communication problems on the back end of the defense.
Because there was times where players were getting
Jackson
burned.
was not this bad in Cincinnati, right?
Right.
But now all of a sudden, this dude, I mean, he couldn't even cover himself out of with a wet paper bag. Like, that's how bad he is. I mean, did y'all the CD Lamb play?
Kendall, listen, the Nova Hospital out in Prince William County, they're going to rename their burn unit the Kendall Fuller burn unit with how much he's getting cooked.
I'm telling you.
But that's the problem, though. Is I keep on seeing situations where they're getting burned, but there's another player behind them, and he's just watching him get burned, and he's not coming back and helping him at all. Like, where is the safety help? I don't understand that.
So I'm going to go back to the CD Lamb. I think that was a CD Lamb. Yes, CD Lamb touchdown. So how is it that Jackson is darn near 10 yards away from CD? He did an okie doke move. It wasn't even that strong of a move at all. You know what I mean? It wasn't that strong of a move, but yet Jackson's like got twinkle toes. He's almost like he's doing some kind of ballet move out there. And CD is wide open. There's no safety. The guy under him is just looking like.
But there was a safety
Jackson,
back, and that didn't.
Jackson looked like he's expecting help because he slows down. He doesn't even try to make up that gap at all. So what is going on back there? Like, what is that?
I just don't understand. But there was a safety back. There was a safety back on that play. If you go back and watch it, and he's in the middle of the end zone doing nothing but watching the play happen. He's the safety valve for that play.
Try not to get posterized.
You know that CeeDee Lamb is one of the best wide receivers in the game. Why aren't you, covering towards that side?
Why are we playing zone anyway? Why is this team not playing man to man? Like they don't have to go. You see what St. Juice was doing man to man?
I know.
Jackson even played better man to man.
We have to talk about it because
play this wide open zone crap.
Because the defense,
I don't understand it.
The defense played well enough in this game at times, but the penalties killed them. Like, they just extended drives, pass interference plays. I think if you take those 100 penalty yards out of the game, and if our offense could show up a little bit, it's a different game. Like, it's just...
Right. By the way, 2 of our INTs that we had, taken away by penalties. Right. You're welcome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So that
but you know what, though?
Yeah.
I'm going to say this, too. Those those pass interferences were the same calls that they called against Washington. Mm-hmm. All I'm asking, I'm not saying nothing about whether it helped or didn't help Washington. Referees just need to be consistent. And that's not consistency. That's pretty egregious when we see it was the same style, same thing. The Jackson play, you call it PI, but it happened to Washington on the other end when you had Terry McLaurin trying to go for the pass, and dude had him inside the collar, pulling him forward.
But the announcers weren't even pointing it out. They were like, oh my God, they just keep on covering him so well. That's all I kept on hearing is like how he's having the best coverage day of the year.
The announcers were like, oh yeah, that might have been a payout, but that was a good play.
Right.
Okay, so if it's a good play on one end, it's got to be a good play on the other end because it's consistency. They weren't doing anything different. But again, like I said, they've been doing this since training camp. They do it in practice. These types of things are going to get called. If you don't correct them as a coaching staff, that is your job to do, teach, correct, to refine and make sure that you're going to be very well prepared on Sunday, then we're going to keep having these problems. And we're going to keep talking about this another week.
Right. Well, speaking about another week, that's a good segue because I don't know if there's much more we can break down about this because it's a lot of. You can go back to the last 2 weeks and find your X's and O's in those situations. But what do they have to do better against Tennessee? Because we just have to have a short memory and we have to go play a tough Tennessee team. Which is, they're only 2-2, but we know that in some ways they're better than a 2-2 team. This game's at home in Washington. Hopefully we'll have somewhat of a home crowd. Hopefully the weather will be okay. But I'll start off with you, Dujunnea. What Do they have to do better? Is there any path you see to a victory in this game?
I'm gonna say no, but if you want me to tell you what needs to be done here, first of all, you can start by scoring points. It's that easy, right? You score points because at the end of the day,
at least double
the
digits.
defense did enough to win ball games, and a lot of these extra touchdowns come from your defense being on the field too long. I mean, we've seen what happens when you score points and you answer on a team. The defense just gets more hungry and more hungry and more hungry. Penalties have to stop. That's on offense and defense, but especially offense, because you know what? When they do like 3 or 4 positive things, they do one negative thing that sets them back into a 1st and 15, and it's over. The drive's done. Okay? They're baked after that. They have to stop getting offensive penalties. This offensive line has to protect better, but in order for this offensive line to protect better, its offensive coordinator needs to help them and put them in position to be successful. We all know that they're struggling with pass protection on 7-step drops and beyond. Let's help them by not doing these things and getting the ball out quicker. And I'm not talking about throwing sideline to sideline down the line of scrimmage. I'm talking about getting the ball out quicker, quick slants, some inside quick post hook routes, things like that gets this thing going. Drag routes, things that gets this thing going.
Even screens.
Puts guys like Samuels in position to make plays with their feet, which he has done and they have done all season long. Cut it with the play action. It ain't going to work right now. They can't protect.
Right. I don't just understand. Like, for me, having some screen plays in there or having the running back fake, even if you were to have the running back fake go through the line and pick it up on the other side of it because they're rushing through, we haven't.
Well, think about the screen plays they did try.
Yeah.
They got murdered. There was no screen to be had because they couldn't even find the running back because the defenders were in his grill. He had no place. And these people talk about, he's got to know to throw it to the line of scrimmage. He can't just get intentional grounding calls. Okay, when you got half the defense on your behind, you try throwing that ball and get into the line of scrimmage. Couch potato quarterback.
Yeah, Wentz was getting an awful lot of, even from my friends, they're messaging, is Wentz really bad or is it just me? And I'm like, it's not about him. It's about the whole team.
Exactly. The whole product is trash.
Yeah.
And he can't operate and do the things he does well when he can't have the time to do so. And they just got to give him time.
3 weeks in a row, they've just started off so slow. And it's just like, that's the thing that's got to change. If we want to beat, Tennessee, that's got a really good running game, which I think is going to cause us a lot of trouble next week.
It's more than just Derrick Henry too. I mean, they got at least a 2-headed monster over there.
Right. For me, it's just frustrating because it's like, I don't know. I'm sort of waiting for Chase Young to come back, but I don't know. Yeah, he's scheduled. He could come back, I believe, next week, but I don't know.
Allegedly, him and Brian Robinson, I have not heard anything, so don't take this as a word. Allegedly, he is supposed to be back, and so is Brian Robinson is supposed to be back.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
I'm not reporting anything.
Actually, Coach Rivera came out today and said that Brian Robinson has been medically cleared by the team.
Mm.
And it would be a nice change. That's for sure. He is a true running back.
Right. And what about Chase Young? Has he said anything about his? I haven't seen anything come across yet. I feel like
Chase.
My wires would go crazy if Chase Young becomes active. So I feel like I would have heard it if it had happened. But
But my feelings on that is if he's going to continue to Bruce Washington Bruce Smith it up the field, he ain't really no factor.
Yeah. I mean, last year
saying
the defense was doing better without him. So it's not like, he's not the reason that we're losing. We're losing is our offense isn't putting any points on the board. So and he's not going to be able to help.
It's stuck in neutral, like just broke the whole dry shaft and everything. Just cars just running and ain't even moving.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, well Have you watched any of the Japanese preseason basketball games? I know sometimes you do watch the NBA, or have you seen anything about that?
I haven't seen anything at all. I've been catching little clips of different basketball things here and there, but nothing as of yet. I've been too tied into the NHRA and trying to
give
close
people
the
a quick
season out.
update on the NHRA, and then we'll let you get out of here a little early, and Champ and I can we'll talk a little basketball, hockey, and baseball in the tail end of this segment. But let people know both the NHRA and also what you're up to on either your podcast or your writings.
Well, it's pretty cool season ending up here. Like most, your NASCAR NHRA has a countdown that is now with 3 races left to go. And it's working out the way that they dreamed it to be. I mean, your top 7 in Top Fuel, which is your long cars, your dragsters, are within 100 points of each other. Like, it's amazing. From 7 to 1, separated by under 100 points. So it's anybody's race to get the championship here. The defending champion won the previous race in St. Louis. You had Robert Height, the funny car driver, AAA, win in funny car. Erica Enders is still in pro stock, still running the gambit. Looking like she's going to secure that championship. And Matt Smith, Pro Stock Motorcycle, also wins as well. So it's a really, really tight and funny car. And Top Fuel, it is decently tight in the other 2 classes in Pro Stock and Pro Stock Motorcycle. But it has been, last race was electric, and I only expected to get better. We're going to have a podcast this week. We're going to talk a little bit about the Washington Commanders here on the breakdown. We're also going to talk about this Tua situation. If anybody saw that.
Before I'd like to actually break that down with you and Champ, because I was definitely going to. 1 second, let me just. I saw there was comments, they weren't refreshing before. So let me get to a couple of quick comments, but then I want to get to that Tua situation because I'd like you and Champ because that's, to me, that's such a big story.
It is.
But I want to thank Eric for tuning in. He says Heineke is fine. He thinks he's still better than Wentz. He might not be Elway, but he's no emotional punk. He said Fuller is old. I bet that he's playing hurt, needs to be replaced or do something with him. O-line tries, but the cupboard is bare on 3rd string already. CP3, wish us a good show. Thanks, CP3. And Rivera doesn't care about winning as a priority, just whatever, and hoping to get lucky. Poor passes made by Dallas's DB look better than they were. There won't be a home crowd until there's a next win. Interesting. So I just don't know how many Tennessee fans were gonna travel, but who knows? I mean,
might be surprised.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I would be shocked. All right. Well,
real quick, Robbie, before we get to the Tua thing, I did want to get my thoughts on the Tennessee game.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to do that.
Yeah, go for it.
Just really quickly, you gotta stop Derrick Henry. You make them one-dimensional, you can beat them because Tennessee's passing offense is not good. And with the way that this passing defense is struggling, this is a way to get their confidence up by going up against Tannehill, who is struggling right now at quarterback. So you put a stop to Derrick Henry, which I'm kind of in a bad spot because I have Derrick Henry on my fantasy team. So I'm kind of screwed if they do that. But you got to stop Derrick Henry and you got to make them throw the ball because then you can really get him because Tannehill is not doing very well right about now. He's not. He's playing so poorly right now.
He's going to get right on this defense.
And that's what I'm afraid of, too, DJ. That's what I'm so afraid of is that he's been struggling the first 4 games of the season. He's going to go up against his secondary, had 300-some yards and 4 touchdowns. And I was sitting here
how it goes.
Washington's
always on the wrong side of history lately.
And then Derrick Henry going to have 100-some yards and 2 touchdowns. I'll be happy that he did well for my fantasy team, but salty that he beat my team.
Sounds about right.
All right, let's talk about Tua. This situation sucks.
Yeah, I agree. So for those who don't know, Tua got hurt in a game, and then basically there's a lot of confusion about who decides whether players get to go in or not. Now, the league came to this decision a couple of years ago that they didn't trust team doctors to make the correct decision for a player's safety. So then they went with the idea that they'd have independent people investigate concussions and injuries and do an analysis. And that way it's not up to the team, so it's not like, is it for the team's benefit or not, right? So an independent investigator cleared him, which is questionable at best. We'll get back into that part of it. And then he plays 4 days later, which I'm of the belief if you've ever got a concussion, you shouldn't be able to play for at least a week. I don't care what the metrics are, whatever. You should have to sit a week. I mean, think about in other sports, you have to sit out a certain amount of time, whatever. In hockey, you have to do the same thing, and it's just, I don't see how they possibly could know enough in a short period of time to clear him. Regardless, they did. He played again, got hurt again, this time arguably worse, or looked worse, at least on TV. Then everyone's up in arms over the Dolphins. It's their fault, even though it's not their fault, because it's the league's fault. And the league is in this interesting situation, right? Because they wanted must-see TV for Thursday Night Football. So, of course, they're going to do it. And then they go ahead and fire this independent investigator when all of this comes out, which to me smells like a scapegoat. The league wanted one thing, probably told the doctor to say something. Then when they questioned the doctor got all uppity in part of the investigation, which we don't know exactly what they said. But all they did is they said that they fought back during the investigation, and they decided to fire him, right? So all that tells me is, maybe he was but you guys told me to say that. And they were like, well, that's not good enough, and we don't really know what goes on in these meetings behind the scenes. And even though it isn't done by the team, it's still not in the player's best interest, right? So that's at least the basics as I understand it. But Dujunnea, fill us in on the rest and your thoughts on it.
So the NFL and NFLPA sent us a joint statement on October 1st, stating that this is an ongoing investigation, that they feel, or possibly, that there were some protocols violated, obviously. Then they want to throw in this new term of gross motor instability. As you noticed this week, when folks got concussions, they didn't come back. Most of them did not come back. Look, Robbie, you kind of laid it out there, and I feel like you laid it out there quite well. I feel like this is another instance in the NFL getting caught in its own muck of things they like to do behind closed doors to make themselves seem like they do and care about players, and it's not about the money over the player, when it's clearly it is. If anybody saw that Miami game that he was in, when he was pushed, and when he fell back, if you get pushed and you fall back, he fell back hard and his head snapped back and hit the ground. When he got up, he took 2 steps and darn near face planted, and gets up and has to be held up by his offensive lineman. So right there, I have no clue how he makes it back in this game in the second half. He should be done for the game, period. But you bring him back. Fine. Okay. So he goes out here Thursday, and everybody says he was pile drived or basically German suplexed on his head. His head didn't even touch the ground. Nowhere near as hard as it touched the ground on that Sunday. His body hit the ground really hard, and his body jolted. And it seems like right when his body jolted, his fingers are all twisted. When I saw that, I'm no doctor, but that was clearly a brain injury. And that is scary, because that's someone's life. They ain't even talking about their career. This is someone's life. This could have long-term effects. as much as we want to sit here and tout about CTE and the NFL getting sort of on the bag and paying certain people and not other people, and then we go and we're doing this, and now all of a sudden we're firing a guy. Look, man, somebody told him to put him in there. It ain't just the independent guy's fault. It's somebody else's involved. That's their fault as well. Because I'm gonna tell you, it's just all of a sudden it's just the Miami guy who just makes a piss poor decision and says, "Hey, man, we go back in here." Like you said, we got a big Thursday night game, prime time on Amazon Prime. It's very clear. But now the NFL wants to talk about investigations. I trust your investigation just as much as I trust that investigation that you guys so-called did with the Washington football team. I don't want to hear that crap.
For sure.
NFL is a bunch of liars. They hide behind the shield all the time. And to be quite honest with you, I start to feel like the NFLPA is part of it because they ain't and they talk like they're in the business of protecting players. The players better protect themselves.
Well, I feel like it's shuffling cards, right? They have so many players, right? And so many different doctors and teams and all these different things. And it's smoke and mirrors, right? They just keep shuffling who's to blame. Don't look at it. Don't see what the big picture issue is here.
Because it's all going to go away. Look how long, you just see how long this investigation going to take. And we're going to find nothing. They're going to give us a statement that I'm going to post when it comes out that's going to say nothing, absolutely nothing, like they always do.
And this has been a problem for a decade. I don't want people to think that this is a new issue.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, again, you're a business, right? You're the NFL. You have players that you need to protect. J.J. Watt goes into AFib. I don't give a crap if his doctor cleared him to play or not. This guy could potentially have it again and die on your football field. He doesn't play this week. And that comes down from the league headquarters. Let them do something else. I would find their butts off. But see, this ain't about that. NFL don't care about that. They get paid. Why? Why would they care?
Big name on Thursday night, so that way Twitch and Amazon Prime can have their star. But I want to get Ken's thoughts real quickly. What are your thoughts, Champ?
Okay. When I saw the replay of this, I didn't watch this live, but I saw the replay of this. When that man got up, he literally got up like this. Man was stumbling, shaking his head, trying to shake the cobwebs out, being held up by his teammates. And I'm like, oh, he not loopy. Then I heard he got back in the game. I said, something's not right about that. When I saw the finger sting on Thursday night, because I watched that live, I thought he broke his fingers. I'm like, ooh, that's not good. But then when I went back and read about it, it was like, no, that he didn't break his fingers. That was a sign of brain trauma. And I'm like, yeah, Miami done fucked up, done messed up. But here's the problem. Here's my problem with this whole thing. Miami is not. They're familiar with controversy. They seem to do a lot of crap controversially that they should not be doing. Like that allegation that Brian Flores made. They said that they would pay him to tank the season for Tua. Y'all remember that? Yeah, I do. Petrus Farm does. Right? And then they've had a bunch of controversies over the last several years. So this does not even surprise me that this is going on because that organization seems shady as sugar honey iced tea. And I'm being absolutely serious. Like, come on. Like, this is a new one. And now, see, a lot of the previous controversies didn't have to do with a player and their health. Now you're dealing with a player's health now. Now something's got to be done. Something's got to be done now with this organization. Because they're crooks. There's some crooked individuals that work in that front office.
And Champ and I talked offline that I really think if they had just planned for their backup quarterback from the start, played it safe, let Tua sit out, they could have won that game. That game was close enough. But they threw him in.
Isn't that the funny part?
Yeah.
It's Teddy Bridgewater.
I know.
Right.
But I think that Teddy Bridgewater, when he was thrown in at the end of the game, made some mistakes. But I think if you had game planned for him and brought him in from the beginning, he could have done okay.
He would have won that game. Teddy Bridgewater was not prepared to come in.
Right.
Okay? Just like any other backup that this freak injury. They don't get the same amount of reps for a team, to prepare for a game, especially on Thursday night. But if he was the starter, I mean, again, you have Teddy Bridgewater as your backup. I mean, who else is pulling a guy of the caliber of a Teddy Bridgewater? Not too many teams. Okay? And no, Dallas, I don't want to hear about Cooper Rush. he does not qualify.
A smart coach, knowing that his quarterback was injured, even if questionable, a smarter coach splits up the reps between the number 1 and the number 2. Period, in practice, especially on a short week. A smart coach does that. This coach was not smart. He gave all the reps to a starter who had a concussion
and probably can't
that they
remember
cleared.
half those plays, right? So,
man,
that seems so crazy.
And some of these decisions have been made as if we are in week 15. It's week. We going on. We looking at week 4.
I know.
I mean, it's crazy to me.
And they were undefeated going into this, right? So,
yes.
You got to plan for the long haul, right? You want to for the rest of the season. So why not plan to play Bridgewater for this game on a short week? He's well rested. He didn't play in 4 days rest, and and Tua had gotten a lot of reps, the week before, and in a tough situation. So it's just, for me, it makes no sense. The league is to blame.
And look,
the Dolphins have to blame, but it's just kind of shocking to me. But it shouldn't
I'm blaming the NFL. I'm with you on it. The NFL, and I'm really starting to feel like the NFLPA does not do what they say they are about doing.
Well, they always do after the fact, right? They always come out and condemn it after the fact. But I'm like, where were you before to stop him from playing?
Exactly. Because this is not the first time we've seen some shady nonsense with somebody's health involved in some type of playing in a game they had no business playing in. You get what I'm saying?
They're always after the fact, we told you so. You didn't say shit. You didn't say
exactly.
shit.
Exactly. Yeah. And we ain't gonna when they release a statement, it's gonna be way later because all the smoke's gonna die down. We're all gonna forget about it.
More shuffling of the cards.
It ain't gonna say nothing.
Right. It's more shuffling of the cards, more sleight of hand, all that bullshit. They
might get a little slap on the wrist and they might fine them a little bit of money, but it ain't gonna be nothing that's gonna, it ain't gonna hurt them. I mean, it's literally a slap on the wrist.
The doctor that was the scapegoat, I don't think they ever even released his name. So it's we don't even know if any of it's true. Right? It's all just smoke and mirrors.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'll let you
spot on, Robbie.
Yeah. Give your final thoughts on what's on your podcast this week, and then we'll let you go. Because I said I'd let you go 20 minutes ago, but that was a good conversation.
Yeah. No, it's cool. We're gonna talk some Commanders. We'll talk a little bit about this Tua situation. And we may talk a little bit about the Wizards. Creed has been covering this thing since training camp, and we'll have some info. Hopefully, we'll have some info on that coming up on this particular podcast. And always, you can follow me at NotBland21. Love talking shop with you guys. And as always, Robbie, it's always a blast being on with you guys.
Yes, I love it as well. Thank you, Dujunnea. I appreciate you as always. And we'll talk next week. Hopefully, we'll break this 3-game losing streak and somehow found a way to stifle Henry. Sorry to your fantasy, Ken, but, we need this. So,
Fair. Yeah, I think we all need it, from the media to the fan base. We need it.
It's going to be hard to make
it makes it very difficult.
Yeah, it's hard to cover the team week in and week out if they're going to be on a losing streak for the rest of the season. So,
Yeah, definitely.
All right, have a great night.
Thanks. You too, guys.
Thanks, brother. All right, Ken, let's just quickly go over some scores. We're going to do baseball first, just because the season is ending. The Nationals had a rough week, as they always seem to. They lost 2 of 3 to Atlanta. They won their last one to sort of salvage that series, so it wasn't a sweep. Starting on Friday the 30th, they played a series against Philly. Philly needed these games badly. They're fighting for that wild card spot. They lost the first game 5-1. Then they actually won a game 13-4. Then they lost the next 2 games, one 8-2 and one 8-1. There's a game against the Mets tonight that's been postponed due to rain. And then they've got a couple more games coming up against the Mets. Two on Tuesday. I believe it's tonight's postponed game, and that's at 4:10. There's a 7:40 game, and then there's a 4:10 one on Wednesday. Who knows if any more of those will get postponed, but the season is over for the Nationals, so I'm not going to talk too much more about them. Probably won't even mention them next week, but it's been a rough one. 104 losses already for the Nationals against 55 wins. So that's tough for sure. Real quickly on the Capitals side of things, last week we talked about it. They played Buffalo. And they had lost that game. Last week they played, so then that was what the game we talked about last week, sorry. And then they played at Philadelphia on Wednesday, September 28th. They won that game 3-1 with goals by Connor Brown. Dylan Strome had 2 goals, one on the power play and one even strength. The even strength one was important because Philly had come back in the third to make it 2-1, and they were able to make that a 3-1 win. And Lindgren, our backup goalie, got the win for that. And then the next game was at Detroit. Carlson got his first goal of the preseason in the second period. Lars Eller scored an empty netter to make it 2-0. That game was important because that was Ovechkin's first preseason game. Carlson got an assist on that goal, so he got 2 points in that game. And it was split time between Kepner and Lindgren in that one. And then there was a loss to the Columbus Blue Jackets. It was a 1-1 game going into the third with Alexei Protas getting the 1 goal for the Capitals. Fortunately, 6:46 into the third, the Blue Jackets won that game. And I'm trying to remember who was in goal. It was Lindgren again. So they're trying to give him, who's the backup goalie, some good reps, mostly because our starting goalie was actually a Stanley Cup winner, so he's probably tired on an emotional hangover after hoisting the cup, around. And we also know what you got out of him. I mean, he won a Stanley Cup last year. I think we're trying to figure out, of all of our couple backup options, who's going to be our backup in that situation. So the Capitals are looking pretty good. Next week, starting at 9 o'clock, we'll have our Capitals season preview show. I'm hoping to have both members of the PowerPoint Point podcast join us, both Gil, the blue liner on point, and Anna Knox will be back as well. And then we'll be starting our football talk a little later at 9:45 next week. And then the last sport, and the reason I've got a chance
Real quick, Robbie, about the Nationals.
Uh-huh.
Only positive thing about the Nationals this past weekend was when they won 13-4 over the Phillies.
Mm-hmm.
That next day, I got me a nice medium-sized Papa John's pizza for half price.
That's awesome.
So that was a W. That was a W.
That is a,
but this has been this has been an abysmal season for the Nationals. I mean, absolutely abysmal. They got to figure it out next year. You can't go from World Series champions in 2019 to 3 years later you're at the bottom of the heap in the NL East. That just can't happen. They have to figure it out, and they have to figure it out now.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, it's very frustrating. I don't even know how to say it in any other way other than, like, they sold all the players I cared about, and they expect us to still be fans. And, it's just kind of trash ownership at this point. Like, they're just trying to make it an interesting team for other people to come out and buy. I hope Ted Leonsis does buy it and fluxes some talent back into this team. But it just sucks that they did all this work to build a team and then they just completely dismantle it, and it just doesn't look anything like that team 4 years later.
Right.
So let's talk a little basketball real quick. 2 games against the Golden State Warriors in Japan. The first game, it was a tight start, 16-12 in the first quarter with the Warriors up. Tied in the second quarter, 25 all. Warriors extended the lead in both the third and the fourth quarter, and they ended up winning 96-87. I will say that Rui Hachimura, in front of a hometown crowd, played well. He had 9 rebounds and 13 points. And it was pretty even scoring. These games are interesting because you have to play your bench, and you're also playing against a really good Warriors team, and so it's a tough ask for them. In the second game, actually, they played much better. I know they still got the loss, but it was a very close first quarter. The Warriors outscored them 26-25. Then the Wizards outscored the Warriors 31-28 in the second. Then they really outscored them in the third, 29-20. And then when they had all the reserves in, the Warriors came back and cruised and scored 30-10 and ended up winning 104-95. But I think that's why I go a little deeper into the box score because Porzingis had a great game with 18 points. Rui Hachimura had 10 rebounds, so he played well. And I think that the team played well. It was just, our scrubs are not as good as, the scrubs for the Warriors. And so I think that it's not like we fell apart with our starters in. I think that people need to look past that a little bit and just try to look at some of the bright sides. And I think that they showed improvement over the first game, which was good. And it was cool. The fans are interesting in Japan. They just seem to just root for anybody to score a basket. Like the same people were cheering in the fans. It's just sort of different than like watching a game in America where you're either rooting for one team or the other. It's like, hey, it's a basket. Hey, it's a basket. It was just, I was amused watching the replay of this game. Like the fans didn't seem to care who won. They just were excited anyone scored.
Right.
But any thoughts on the first two Wizards preseason games?
Very promising, I will say. Very, very promising, especially that second game where you had 5 players in double figures, including Rui, who had a double-double in front of his home fans in Japan. So that's very, very promising. Kristaps Porzingis was the leading scorer in the second game, so that's even more promising to know that the big acquisition you made in Kristaps is looking like he's going to be paying dividends for you going into the season. I think that, these first 2 preseason games aren't much of a barometer of what they could do. They were going up against the defending champions, and you got more play from your reserves than you did your starters. But I think it's still a very good, slightly good measuring stick to see where this team is at in terms of personnel. Hopefully over these next few preseason games, as they get ready to go into the regular season, they figure out rotations, figure out who's can work well with who, and be able to put it all together for the next 82 games and maybe have a much better showing in what's now an even tougher Eastern Conference than it has been in years. So that coaching staff's definitely got to get that figured out sooner rather than later. Otherwise, we're in for a long season, Rob, if they don't get it figured out.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's no games to preview this week because they're coming back from Japan, so they gave them 8 days off, which makes sense. The next game will be at Charlotte next Monday, and we'll actually be able to talk about that live a little bit. It'll be a 7 o'clock game, so we'll be able to give our post-game analysis of that one after our football talk next week, and then we'll be able to preview the last preseason game, which is at New York, and then also take a look at the first week, which we're playing all teams from the Central. The Indiana Pacers at Indiana, Chicago will be at home, and then the last game will be at Cleveland. So we'll preview those 4 games as well as recap how that next preseason game goes against Charlotte. But Champ, thanks for letting me run through that quickly with you. Before we let you go, let people know what's on the No Spots podcast this week.
All right, so No Spots is going to be on a special night, a Thursday night, because of the fact we will be live reacting to Extreme Rules on Saturday night. So Thursday night, we are going to be talking about everything that's happening this week with the build-up to that said pay-per-view coming up on Saturday. We will also preview that pay-per-view as well as preview Impact Wrestling's Bound for Glory, which we will also be live reacting to. Sith will be live reacting to that on Friday night. So we have a busy week with 3 straight Twitch streams as well as the podcast as well. So make sure you check us out at twitch.tv/TrueNoSpotsPod, and make sure you check out the audio version of those streams on the podcast partners button at SportsOTHP.com.
Thank you so much. As always, I hope that people do check out the No Spots podcast, especially if they're big wrestling fans. And I always appreciate your insight on all things sports, whether it be a CTE analysis, a Washington Commanders analysis, or we talk about Wizards. Next week, we'll talk about all those sorts of things. Hopefully no concussions. But I appreciate your insight as always. And we'll see you next week.
Arigato, sayonara.
All right, so we're gonna bring in the LG music. How you doing?
Hey, Robbie, how's it going?
Good, good. I'm gonna log in real quickly to another account over here because I like to add an extra computer, an extra camera, so people can watch what I'm doing on the keyboard. Because some people were interested in that last time. But while I'm setting up that additional camera angle, why don't you, for people who don't know who you are, let people know who you are and also what your streams are about. And we're also going to, after that, I'm going to end our Facebook Live. But I figured it's going to be kind of a teaser for anybody that is listening on the podcast or watching us on Facebook to maybe come over and click that twitch.tv RobbieG button and come on over and join us for this art stream.
Yeah, that's right. And also, I just want to recognize that CT and Carly are now realizing it's October 3rd. It's a really big holiday in my house because my wife is a huge Mean Girls fan. So she's wearing pink today too, but she's out with the dog. So I'm just really glad that somebody caught it. But yeah, I'm Luis. I'm on Twitch. I go as the LG Music. I'm a singer songwriter. I live in the state of New Mexico. I'm married to my wife, who goes by the Pasta Wife on Twitch and in other places. We've been married for 10 years, going on 11. We'll be going on 11 in January, which is crazy. We have a dog and we have 2 adorable cats as well. And what else? My streams usually I just play music and we hang out, and there's a lot of dad jokes throughout the way. And just have a really good time. And I'm just happy to be here. And the theme is always tacos. So I'm excited for some taco merch magic going on. I'm very excited.
Yes, I'm excited to make some taco merchandise with you as well. So with that, we're going to end our audio podcast for people who are just listening to us on that, as well as thank you to all the people. We had a ton of people commenting on our Facebook live stream. I know that a lot of the Twitch people don't see that side of it, but a lot of people asking questions about football and talking to us on that side. So I really want to thank everyone for tuning in over there on Facebook, and we'll be back next week. Again, 9 o'clock start next week. We'll be talking hockey for the first 45. We'll then get into some football and then some basketball. This is our last art stream, so please click over to Twitch if you want to join us for that. Let me make sure that I end the right thing. There's like 8 buttons in front of me, and we're streaming on 2 different things. You don't want to click the wrong stream off, so we'll stop that. But we're DC Sports Without the Politics and Sports on the Hill podcast. We'll catch you guys next week. All right. So I think we're...
See you, podcast people.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the podcast is done, so that's good. We're still recording, which is good as our backup, which I always appreciate in case something goes down on Twitch. So that's good. Let me see here. We're still on our sports casting view, so I'm going to switch us over to art here. I'm running 3 computers at once, Louis. It's pretty crazy.
I know. I have you on 2 different screens.
Yeah.
One is the Zoom, and then I have the Twitch screen open so I can keep up with chat, and I'm like, I don't know which one to go to.
Right. Yeah, it gets very complicated. So, like, I've got one computer just using it as a camera, got another one that I'm looking at and can see chat. We got